I'm John Coughlin, the owner of Daniel Smith, and today we're inside the artist studio with Angela Fehr. Angela is from British Columbia, Canada. Beautiful, beautiful province. And thank you for inviting us into your workspace.
Well, thank you for inviting me to talk with you today. I love showing off my space because it's a really special place for me and the fruit of a long, long journey. And so, yeah, it's always great to have people here. And I don't very often have people in person in my studio because we're way up north. When people hear British Columbia, they usually think of Vancouver, but you have to drive another 12 hours north in order to get to where we live. It's a long ways. And, and then you still have to drive basically a day if you wanted to get like to Alaska, for example. So yeah, it's a long way.
That's a long way. So can you show us what you've been working on, some recent works?
Yeah, I can. I love telling, well, I guess what I'll tell you first is that I'm a little bit of an intuitive painter. And I don't know that I like the word intuitive. I kind of prefer, I've been using the word heart-led, in that I don't want to copy my reference photo. I want to share mood and emotion through it. And most of the time when I paint something for the first time, that first picture is going to be pretty close to a copy of my reference photo or my location where I'm sitting. It's just that way. The first version tells you what you don't know. And then when I continue to paint, then I get to start to put my own heart into it. So I'm just going to move my camera. Okay, how does that look?
That looks good.
Okay, so what I've been working on lately, well, I have this reference photo. I've been working on this for a class. This is from a trip to Ireland. And so I'm just trying to get a feel for it with some new colors. I was using I'm not sure how to pronounce it to tell you the truth, Sugilite?
Sugilite.
Sugilite, and so I was giving that a try. It's such a beautiful soft purple. So I was putting that in my back hills here and then pairing it with some undersea green and cobalt turquoise and just a hint of bloodstone. So this is what I was working on this afternoon and why I wasn't as prepared as I wanted to be when you called for our talk. So I got a little distracted, it happens. So I'll show you something that I've worked on it in a series, and I really feel like I have to work in a series when I'm painting because, again, I have to figure out what I really want to say and how I really want to say it. So this was a reference photo from a trip to Montreal. I taught a workshop there last fall, and I don't do urban architecture at all. I always paint trees and nature, and so this was a huge challenge for me to start to get a feel and a loose style for my scene. So this was a very quick sketch, not a lot of time into it. And I do that usually because I don't want to invest hours in something and find out that I'm taking it in the wrong direction. And so I just kept on painting small versions of my scene. And I think this is number 3. And here's another one, number 4. And you can see I'm changing the colors slightly. This is number 5, and I was starting to feel like I was getting a little bit closer to what I wanted to say. And I started to kind of blur out. At first I was painting the car quite a lot and I realized I didn't want to do that. So, I was just fooling around with how much detail can I let go of in order to get to the heart of my scene. And actually at this one now, I almost think I could crop it and frame it. I also did a couple little, technical things to help me understand my scene. I used a transparency sheet to trace kind of the contours right on the tablet where my photo was located. And I did a value study using watercolor graphite. And then I decided I should try it large. And so I did a half sheet, and this one got really messy. I always figure if a painting isn't really turning out, then I might as well learn all I can from it and throw a lot of paint at it in the process. You can really like that cobalt turquoise spatter here. And lavender's been in a lot of my paintings lately. It's just such a marvelous color. And then this one was the exciting one. This one felt special somehow, even though I let go of so much detail in it. And it's not very big, and you always think you want your masterpieces to be large, but I just let it go and just kind of decided to let this one be finished just the way it was because it made me happy. And then when you're painting in a series like this, I've done 7 or 8 versions here, then it's on your head, it's in your mind, and it kind of starts to emerge even when you're not really sure what you're going to paint, which is what happened with this version. And this is the one that to me feels really exciting. Just move it up so you can see the whole thing. I had been playing with some lavender, and I think that's um, Mars Yellow, I think is what that one is. It's very much like raw sienna, so I get them confused. And I had this splash of color and just a first layer, playing with color, letting it flow together. And when I looked at it the next day, all of a sudden I saw these building contours emerge. And I actually just started throwing this dark color on it. A little bit of it is graphite powder, and then carving out those shapes. And it just, I don't know if anybody else sees what I see in it, but I get excited when I look at this painting. It's just so much freedom, and it feels like I've let go of that copy of the reference photo and started to do my own thing. And that's what I'm always aiming for in my paintings. So those were really fun to do. In my painting, I often just really try to simplify my subject. This one is a winter scene. That was actually a reference photo sent to me by one of my students. And I had so much fun, again, exploring a building in the natural landscape and trying to kind of get an understanding of how to bring in these man-made forms into my paintings. So that's been really fun to do. And I'm just going to show you while we're here, and here's my camera moving again. We'll just take a little look at the piles on my studio table. You can see when you work in a series, a lot of times you get all this work in progress stuff that's just doesn't get finished very quickly. And so this table, even though it's 10 feet by 4 feet, it is never actually clean. And since we're looking at the table, I'm going to show you that these tables are actually blueprint cabinets.
Oh, yeah.
My husband and I found these used, and he built legs for them and put them on in the studio here and put a top on them. So now I have the cabinets, which are great for painting storage because, as you know, I feel weird holding this. As you know, watercolor artists have large sheets of paper we have to store somehow. So the blueprint cabinets have been amazing as a work surface and storage right at my fingertips.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So when you may do a painting at a time, but you do several references of that painting then.
Yeah, I work very quickly. So most of the time, even a completed painting is going to have probably under 2 hours worth of time into it. And but the time investment comes in all of those development pieces that lead to kind of finding the essence of what I want to say in that subject. I feel like I'm learning how to edit, to strip away all the details and kind of get to the heart of what I wanted to say. And so it's an interesting way to work because so often as an artist, when someone asks you about your painting, they'll often ask, how long did it take you to do that? As though that's the measure of the value of the work. And when you're working to simplify and become, more succinct at painting, it's not really about that. It's the hours that are going to it happen long before the painting, that piece of paper happens.
Oh, excellent. So do you think that, or do you go out and do plein air? Do you do photos? I know you do some, excuse me, some photos because you said that. Mm-hmm. And how about the creative part of in your mind? Is that also, it's nothing you've taken a photo about, it's just pieces come together and you say, that's what I want to paint.
Yeah, because where I live here in Dawson Creek, it's we have very long winters. I mean, we have 7 months of winter most of the time. And so, and then even during spring and summer and fall, a lot of times it's cooler than you would like for sitting a long time out of doors. And the mosquitoes just woke up yesterday. So there's a lot of reasons why many Northern artists are studio painters. I'm not super hardcore. And then I have a young family, 3 teenagers. We're very active. So when we're outdoors, we're moving. We're off-roading in the forest, we're hiking, and we get to see a lot of stuff, but I don't get a lot of time to paint. So I do rely on reference photos. And I used to feel guilty about that. A lot of artists say, you get a better effect if you paint from life. And I think that's why the need to continually refine and edit. And I like to paint places I've been, things that have special personal meaning, because then I can kind of look inside and remember why that scene is important and what I want to say about it. And, John, the Daniel Smith colors are such a big part of this because I've realized over time that Color is really how we communicate mood a lot of the time. And so, it's the colors we choose that tell people how we feel and, transmit that. And it's really fun to choose a color because it just feels like, it feels like home somehow.
Awesome. That's awesome. And so do you find that you paint more landscapes, more portraits, abstract, or is there one kind of that speaks to you the most?
Um, I feel like I've kind of become a landscape painter over time. I kind of started with florals. Actually, originally thought my path was to become a botanical artist. And, then I realized that I really like making messes. So I got much more fluid and loose in my painting. But I very much connect to the landscape. It's the places that we've been that kind of inform the person that I am. And so I like to share what I want to say. It's like when my daughter and I, every day almost, it's look at the sunset, and you invite someone over to share this view with you. And as artists, we get to do that. So I feel like that's really that's really my artist statement, is just look. I see something, I feel this certain way about it, and I want to share that with you.
Awesome.
I have gotten a lot more abstract in my method of doing that, however, and I've realize that I would like to be able to tackle any subject that inspires me, nothing should be off limits. I think we should always give ourselves permission to surprise ourselves and get out of that rut.
Awesome. Awesome. Is that one of your florals behind you there?
What if I have behind me? Yeah, that is one of my florals back there in the back corner, and then I have a lot of landscapes here as well, and a little bit of abstract. I can kind of show you some of it. This camera is tethered to a cord, so we have a limit as to how far we can go. But you can see there's abstract here. This waterfall was something that my family, we took quads and went about 30 kilometers into the backcountry to view this beautiful waterfall. My husband said the time he'd gone before we were there, the first time he went, they scared off a grizzly bear just before they got to the waterfall. And then we see this kind of pink and yellow and purple one here is the river, the Peace River, which is a landmark up here. And it's, I think when I was 2 months old was the first time my parents took me down to that river. So I'm very much tied to home and to place here in my region. And I love to share that with others because, like I said, we are far up in the north. And so a lot of people don't think of our area as a tourist destination. And yet we get to, we have such beauty, and we don't have to share it all the time. Often when we go out into the bush, we don't see anyone else. And so I do get to share it with all my students when I teach online, which is really special. And it has helped me value my home more by painting it and by sharing it with others and showing them the beauty that I see.
That's awesome. So for brushes, are you a fan of synthetic, natural, or both?
I've been really liking the newer synthetic brushes that are made to natural hair. Escoda's Versatil line is really nice. This is their number 10 rigger. And this one's almost worn out. It just doesn't have the nice point on the tip anymore. I'm not very gentle with brushes, so I don't want to spend a lot for, Kolinsky sable or something. Most of the time, soft synthetic is what I like. And then I like to change things up, as much as I use this brush for almost everything. I love being able to pull out some shape that I haven't used in the past to make a new mark that feels really exciting. And that's a really good way to spark some creativity.
Oh, awesome. And so for our the people watching, do you have any tips or techniques that you'd like to share with them?
Oh, now you're putting me on the spot. Most of the time, what I love to share is really giving students and other painters permission to just really enjoy where you're at. I think we are always so busy trying to make that perfect painting or get to that next level of expertise that we forget that we got into this because it was beautiful color and because we love seeing the way it just whooshed across the paper. And we come and we bring our work ethic into the studio. And I really think that, in painting, we should be like Picasso and just rediscover play and childhood and just, that inner, what really lights me up and gets my guard down. So that's what I'm always seeking when I come into the studio. And my goal when I come in to paint is to paint for as long as, just to warm up, to play with paint for until I start to feel that feeling like anything's possible and the ideas are starting to flow. And then I want to kind of seamlessly transition into, that painting that I had been working on and need to finish. And if I can get my guard down so that I'm not judging my own work, it becomes really exciting to see what emerges on the paper.
Awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Angela, thank you very much for taking the time to share with us today. I wish you
Thank you for having me.
health and safety. My pleasure having you. So thank you very, very much.